Perfect. Here you go.
Hi, everyone. I might ask someone to close those doors maybe before we get started. Just as a reminder, this is a hybrid session, so we have the chat open in case anyone is sharing their comments online. We also, for anyone who's joining virtually, have captions running. So yeah, hopefully people virtually have what they need. If you need anything in person, let it be known. I just want to get us started by sharing this beautiful photo of Providence that I found. My name is Apurva Ashok. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an immigrant settler from Bangalore. That's in southern India, but I work primarily in Takaranto, in Toronto, Canada. Today, we're gathered, as you all know, on Narragansett Indian tribe land. This is my first time in Providence. I was really excited to hear that the state motto is hope. I am excited to meet more community members over my next few days here. And for me, at least, and for us at Rebus, doing a territorial acknowledgement is just one step of many in our commitment to reconciliation work, to decolonization work. Hopefully, you will see that in a lot of our conversational themes today. And with that, I am maybe going to turn it over to some of the other people you might see sitting here or up on the screen. I'm just going to invite all of you as attendees, whether you're in person or participating virtually, just consider what emotions, feelings, thoughts these questions bring up, the panelists' responses bring up. We really want this to be not just a learning experience, but a reflective one for all of you. So I'm actually going to start by asking our four panelists and speakers here to maybe introduce yourselves. Tell us about your role at Rebus and tell us about your leadership background.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. Hi, I'm Gunn. I am a fat, Black, queer, disabled Quaker woman. I come out of a tradition of Black feminist scholarship and thought and method. Oh, closer. My bad.
You really need to speak into it.
Really into it. Of course, I can do that. I'll do my litany of adjectives again. Okay. I'm Gunn. I am a fat, Black, queer, disabled Quaker woman. I come out of a tradition of Black feminist scholarship, thought, and method. And I started out wanting to be a very traditional academic and researcher, but during my PhD program in feminist studies at the University of Minnesota, a lot of things started shifting for me. I loved teaching, but I felt really frustrated by the limited resources available for me to meet my needs and to meet student needs, especially with the profound lack of training that we're given to prepare for a classroom. And I started shifting to thinking really seriously about inclusive pedagogy. And after I defended my dissertation, sort of like born into the George Floyd era, I defended on the same day he was killed. It was a very weird time in Minneapolis. But after I defended, I took a postdoc at Harvard related to humanities pedagogy. And since then, I've taken up leadership of a collective called the Pedagogy Lab, which used to be housed in a small nonprofit called the Center for Black, Brown, and Queer Studies, where I still do some teaching and enjoy mentoring their predoctoral fellows. The Pedagogy Lab is Hewlett funded, and we create diverse OER for diverse audiences made mostly by Black, Brown, and Queer rising scholars. Most of our OER is audio-based, which is one of the kind of subtle ways we are pushing against white supremacy and trying to advance equity in our own way. And it's designed for integration into higher education and community education settings and classrooms. So these days we're being hosted by the Center for Feminist Future at UCSB. And that's a very different kind of institutional can of worms there, but it will open up a lot of doors for us. And that transition has been a huge lesson for me in terms of thinking about decision-making ethics for an equity forward group, collective, as I call us. And so I already did a long list of adjectives, but I'm going to hit you with some like acronym-y, like it's going to be titles, and I'm just preparing you. So I also work as a senior educational developer in inclusive pedagogy at Georgetown University's Center for New Designs in Learning and Scholarship. One more time, maybe? No, I'm just kidding. The work I do there launches and maintains college-wide DEI initiatives and programming, which, as you guys probably have guessed by this day in the conference, is a lot. It's a lot. And so all of those roles led me to connect with Apurva and Rebus, where I'm one of the new board members of their board this year. And I've been really thrilled to help and see how this organization functions and runs. And so I'm excited for you all to hear more about it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Coolidge. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the executive director at BC Campus. We're an organization that works with the public post-secondary institutions in British Columbia, Canada, in the areas of teaching and learning and open education. I am a fourth generation university graduate on my father's side and a second generation university graduate on my mother's side. I am a white cisgender woman, and I acknowledge that I come with a lot of privilege. I also, my mother's side of the family is Irish and English, and my father's side is Irish and Scottish. So very prominent European ancestry. As I mentioned, I'm currently the executive director at BC Campus. I just started that role as the executive director 2 years ago, and I'll be talking a little bit about that tomorrow in my leadership talk. Tomorrow, Thursday, yes. But before that, I was the director of open education at BC Campus, and I've been in the open education movement since 2006. At the time, I was working in Nairobi, Kenya, as a senior educational technologist for a program called Teaching for Teacher Educator in Sub-Saharan Africa. It was the first teacher educator portal. They called it a portal then, now we call them repositories, but for teacher educators across sub-Saharan Africa to provide them teaching and learning materials for free and that were openly licensed. I have a master's in educational technology, and I also have a background in instructional design. And a little fun fact about me is that my family and I live full-time in an RV. It's 42 feet long, and we travel quite extensively. When my son is out of school, he goes to public school, but we have a great time doing that. And Zoom backgrounds are great because nobody knows where I am. I'm a Rebus board member, and Apurva asked me if I would be on the board, and it was an easy yes. I'm very committed to this organization. I'm proud to support Apurva through all of her leadership work, and I'm excited to talk to you today about how amazing Rebus has done in evolving as a very equitable organization. And I'm going to pass it to Boris.
And that's not Boris for those in the room looking at Hugh. Boris is online.
I was hoping for it to be Hugh next, but I'll jump in. Hi, everyone. I sadly can't see anybody, but that's okay. My name is Boris Anthony. I'm broadly of European descent, mostly peasants and urban proletariat in my background. I was born and grew up on, hold on. I haven't actually had to say this out loud before. Haudenosaunee Mohawk land in Montreal, Canada, which I really appreciated. I'm currently based in two places. I spend the summers in Berlin, Germany, which I sometimes call the capital of atemporality or the ground zero of modernity. Every day I can be reminded of what happens when we allow authority and technology to become too exploitative, too centralized, and too powerful multiple times throughout history. And my partner and I spend winters in her ancestral Ainu land in northern Japan. I am one of the co-founders of Rebus and a member of its board. And despite being rather uncomfortable with those kinds of structures, it's the reality of the systems we have to operate in. we'll probably talk more about it later, but Rebus was born out of a technical prototype that I built, and I still tinker on, to explore personal web-based ebook libraries. So that's to say that I've labored in the information technology industry mostly at various levels of purview, primarily in design and development. I tried my hand at management, but that didn't go so well. So I'm not one of those. I'm currently a visiting researcher at the Chiba Institute of Technology in Japan at their Center for Radical Transformation. I participate in various creative endeavors around emerging socio-econo-political technologies, as well as I do my own research and development, if I can say such a thing. Finally, I'll mention that I fall just outside the current Overton window of what is considered neurotypical. I have an official diagnosis of ADHD and several confirmed patterns on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum. So that's about all I'm going to say today from this. Hugh?
How's that on? Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name's Hugh. I'm a white guy with a gray beard. I've been working in open for, I guess, since about 2005. So I started a project called LibriVox ages ago, which gets volunteers to make audio recordings of public domain books, which to me was the introduction to all the wonderful and amazing things that were going to happen on the web as we became more collaborative and worked together and different structures evolved to replace capitalism. It turns out that didn't happen at all. But I guess I've continued sort of scraping away with that kind of ideal. And I guess when I think about so LibriVox was kind of my introduction to this universe, and got me excited that small little projects with big ideals behind them could grow into powerful things. I started Pressbooks back in 2011-ish, which has been used as the platform that underpins a lot of OER. And then finally, with Boris, co-founded Rebus, which went through lots of different iterations before it became what it is under the amazing leadership of Apurva. By the way, speaking of Apurva and how to organize conference panels, she printed out for us what we're talking about and gave us all little cards about doing on this thing. So thank you, Apurva, for being awesome at organizing this. So for me, I guess just talking about the position, I think I'm a classic sort of lefty liberal type of person. And one of the things that's been interesting, which maybe we can talk about, but has been I don't know if conflict is quite the right word, but we had some very intense board meetings about. Oh,
Yeah, they can't hear you, so you need to
sorry. How's that?
kiss the mic is
Kiss
what
the
I was told in choir.
So I'll try to do my late night FM radio voice like this. But so one of the things that I wanted to bring up today in the context of diversity and equity is the amount of debate we had within the organization about how Rebus should be positioning. And I think it was relatively intense at times. And I think it's important that we remember the space of debating about ideas. And I will say that the specific thing that we were debating is how do we present Rebus to the world? And I always come back for myself to what are we trying to achieve and who are we trying to help? And how is our language, how we talk about what we're doing, impacting that? And just as an example, two of the states where we have had, I think, the most successful projects happen to be Idaho and Louisiana. And I'm not sure if there are any folks from either of those places here today, both of which are hyper red states where people have to be very careful about how they talk about things like diversity, equity, inclusion by law. But what's interesting is that those two states couch their programs that they're doing with Rebus in terms of the impact that will have on helping people get better access to education and better access to achievement. And so to me, there's some lesson in that story about thinking about what are we trying to achieve and what is the best way to get there. And I guess that's the angle that I take. And there's a tension sometimes between, I talk about Boris, who wants to dismantle the structures of capitalism all the time. Caitlin, who comes from a very different background to me. And the question is, how do we work together as a group to achieve something? And that's, I guess that's my, I don't know, introduction myself, is that's what I like to see happening. And
Thanks, Hugh.
happy to see
Yeah.
Rebus is going in that direction. So.
And I'm just going to say, we spend a lot of time with these introductions because Jasmine actually mentioned at her session yesterday, context matters. It's important for all of you to understand who these people are, who the leaders are, who we are, and where we're coming from as we're sharing our responses to some of these questions. And how all of this, as he was just saying, is related to our history, current events, conceptions of knowledge. So I'm actually going to start by asking all of you, what does an equitable organization mean to you?
Okay, so according to my script, I am to start. But I'm very excited to talk about this because one of the things that I've learned through working with this awesome board, as well as with Apurva, is about the strength of creating an equitable organization. So I took some notes on a little bit of what I wanted to say, but to me, an equitable organization is one that is human-centric and provides fair opportunities to all employees based on individual needs. It's also knowing and recognizing that each person at an organization comes with different privileges and also has different resources. And how do we adapt and be able to support those individuals with the needs that they may have? To me, it's also about pay equity, ensuring that our staff are paid appropriately. It's also about having open discussion. And when I talk about open discussion, it's a little bit about what Hugh said, is it's also about having those uncomfortable conversations. And a lot of times, as mentioned, is when we were going through the strategic planning process with Apurva and the rest of the board, we did have some uncomfortable conversations about what do we mean by equity? What do we mean by inclusion? And how do we actually walk the talk? And I'll get to that in a second as well. But I also think I like to quote Ted Lasso here a lot of times, is he says, be curious and not judgmental. And for me, that's how I always frame uncomfortable conversations, is I'm not here to pick a fight, and I'm not here to get people annoyed. But what I'm here is to actually get curious and to start asking those questions of why. And so what's holding us back from making those decisions? I also think an equitable organization puts emphasis on professional development for staff. And that means being able to upskill or reskill or to be able to serve people as they need on any sort of professional development opportunity. But I also want to say that it's really easy for us to say we want to be an equitable organization. And what does accountability actually mean to this statement? So we really must walk the talk. And one of the roles of the board here is helping Apurva and staff be accountable to statements we make in the strategic plan. And we'll talk a little bit more about the strategic plan later, but it is something that we are very committed to as a board, is to making sure that what we say up there is not just language, but it's actually something we do.
Well, you're actually seeing some of the language from the new plan up on the slides. And Christina, I might ask you to maybe drop in that link into the chat if you can, for anyone who's virtual and wants to take a look at it. Now, I'll put up a QR code if you want to save it for later. But there was a lot of conflict and discussion as we were figuring out the language here, and I'm really pleased with the vision for the future in the world that we think Rebus is trying to contribute towards and build. And you'll see that this is infused with a lot of joy, a lot of curiosity, as Amanda was describing. I think for me as a leader, equitable organizations are also ones that are fun. It's not just a place where work gets done, but where communities can come together and transform as individuals as well. Did anyone else on the board want to respond to this prompt, or would you like to move in? Go in.
I have a tiny comment, which is just that I think, is this on? Okay. It's just that I think that there's no such thing as an organization that like achieves and stays in a like static state of equitable. Like Rebus is an equitable organization because it continues to work at equity and it continues to practice these things and change and adapt as time goes on. Instead of sort of thinking about it like, once we do these things, checkbox, we are an equitable
Mhm.
organization, that it might even sound hopeless, but I find something very freeing about that, that it's not like we have a specific pinpoint where we're trying to get to a very specific place. It's just ongoing struggle, ongoing learning. And so I think, to Hugh's point, the board really was active and engaged
Mhm.
in that sort of ongoing struggle and figuring out where to land in this current moment that gets us toward equity rather than just thinking about it as sort of a fixed place. That's my small.
All right. Well, a lot of people have been asking and saying the words talk the talk, but how does Rebus walk the walk?
Now I'm supposed to start, so
And Hugh,
I'm so sorry. Hugh. It's the session.
But I
It's
didn't
the
say anything
Apurva
about make
organized-
values turn internally. It's on this, sorry, Karen. No, go ahead.
This is how it all starts. Okay.
but I'm also a timekeeper, so
Apurva's on it. Okay, so I'll hurry through this, but okay, Rebus, I think, walks the walk by working at embodying equity in its internal policies as first, as a foundation for its external work on equity. A big part of that is recognizing that flexibility is a major key to inclusivity. Every time I engage with Rebus or Apurva, there's attention to my accessibility needs, my personal needs, my state of mind. By fostering that kind of flexible work culture that can meet folks where they are to the best of our ability, Rebus winds up supporting the needs of its team members who are bringing their whole selves, and that can be as caregivers, as pet owners, as mine frequently is, as people with bodies and minds and families who prioritize their mental and physical well-being rather than being limited by what fellow board member Boris up there is calling the tyranny of the practical. Rebus sort of encourages a vision center. I know, pause for that. That really stuck with me at that board meeting. I was like, yes, yes, yes. Oh, okay, yeah. See, Boris shout out right there. Rebus encourages sort of a vision-centered speculative approach, and the speculation, I like to think I have something to do with. A lot of my scholarship is around speculation. And so that sort of speculative mindset in a leadership context is sometimes about challenging others to ask, okay, what could you do? Okay, if there were no limits, what would you say or do? And then to plan backwards from there rather than terminating like Amanda's curiosity. I'm so sorry, for the sake of glorifying and being comfortable with practicality and constraint. So when we go speculative first, it really allows us to prioritize meaningful long-term goals over practicality of the day-to-day. The tyranny of the practical, Boris.
he
I'll
says,
let Hugh talk now.
Oh,
jump in. Please jump
am
in.
I on the next one? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, I want to talk about talking, walking the walk. Yeah, not talking the talk, walking the walk. One of the things, I guess, just a principle that I've always had in my work life is wanting to work in a place or be a leader in a place, which is the kind of place that I would like to work. And so, and the way I happen to work is I like to go off on my own, have responsibility, and build things. That's what I like to do, working with other people. And so that's kind of was, I guess, a principle behind Rebus. And one of the things that was important from the beginning and was, I remember Apurva did a master's at Simon Fraser University and was an intern originally.
Hugh, you need to keep it closer to you.
Back to my FM voice. Apurva was an intern coming out of master's program at Rebus and Pressbooks. Probably, I can't remember how it worked, but we kind of shared resources at the time. And it was amazing to me. So, Canada's a relatively big country. This internship, I believe we were the only company that was paying interns that was coming out of this publishing program. And just for me, the idea of having people come to work for free seems outrageous to me. I don't think we paid very much, but we did as much as we could in the budget. But so that was kind of one of the things. And I think this is a really important concept within the open ecosystem is the amount of reliance we have on people just being really dedicated and volunteering more time than they should for their own health to this ecosystem. And to me, this is one of the fundamental problems in the ecosystem of open, is just how much extra work people have to do to keep this thing going. And this is a failure to me of the institutions not valuing the work that we do properly. Thank you to Hewlett for being the one institution out there that is also awesome to work with, by the way, as a funder. So to me, walking the walk was about building a space where people could do the stuff they want to do and are good at, and helping shape things in that direction. I think the thing that Apurva brought to walking that walk is making that a little bit more structured than it might have been in the days when I was running Rebus.
Can I just add one more thing?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, from a financial financial viewpoint, I also think that running an equitable organization means paying the invoices on time. And that, to me, is something that I really believe is important. And especially for if we're asking people to put forward their own funding or own money in order to come speak somewhere or to do some consulting, is there a way to pay in advance or to be able to support them? So that's something Apurva and I have talked about before, is what is financial equity?
And Hugh, you've already started to describe, in your perspective, what some of those non-negotiables are for you in the Rebus workspace. What about the other board members? What else do you think is non-negotiable as we think of how Rebus as an organization functions? And Hugh, if you had more to add, please do.
Maybe, yeah, I'll go. I think the, I guess these are kind of buzzwords, but they are truly there, is really respect for the work that people do. I think that's kind of at the fundamental piece of it. And I think when you think about how Rebus has evolved, it's evolved into an organization that supports the work of educators who are trying to do innovative and new things. And I think, fundamentally that's it, about respecting the thing that people care about and what they're trying to do, and trying to support them as best we can. And one of the nice things about where Rebus is now compared to where it was, is that it's gotten to the point where it has better resources to do that than it would have done at the beginning.
And someone in the chat maybe uses the term agile budgeting. Thank you for that, Amanda.
I think too, another thing is, as our job as the board, which was really important, is to push Apurva to hire people.
Yes.
So Apurva runs this organization with another partner, Caitlin, who's on maternity leave right now. But the thing is that behind the scenes, Apurva is doing a lot. So from admin to operations to finance to coming up with creative ideas. And at some point, you're just looking at this wonderful leader and thinking, we're going to lose her to a burnout crisis, and we need to ensure that that we help her see where support is needed. So I think that's something also is as a board, is to look at what are the non-negotiables in terms of organizational like culture, as well as team. What does the team look like?
Yeah, and to realize that growth and progress, as folks in the chat are also saying, isn't urgent, and that also means investing in the individuals. And Hugh, I really loved how you said it's respect for the work people do, and creating an environment that you as a leader yourself want to be working in. We haven't done this alone. Although Amanda made it seem like it's just me, I've had a lot of support behind the scenes, including from the board. What support from other individuals or other structures have helped us as an organization prioritize sustainability? And Boris, I might ask you to start.
I don't know if I can directly answer that, but let me gather my thoughts. I think as we've sort of spoken about a bit, we ironically was what I'm about to say. We've always been very practical. Hugh and I both come from or we were coming from, and we still, spend some time in the sort of information technology space where a lot of this language around innovation and growth, et cetera, inherited from corporate environments and stuff. And we were lucky enough, or privileged enough to be able to afford the time to sort of develop what we wanted to do. And it was very clear from the beginning that this was not a commercial enterprise, et cetera. And we didn't want it to be. And a lot of the culture that we, I think, to some extent, very consciously tried to foster, speaks to a lot of things that have already been said. So I've just sort of let you guys talk so far, and it's all been really good. I think I'm thinking in terms of like key phrases, like something that also came up in one of the board meetings was Rebus is the way it is because of the way people in and around Rebus are. And I think we very consciously worked to make it that way, and sometimes unconsciously. Like we and as Hugh has said earlier, and has been repeated a few times, like respect the work, respect the person, respect the needs, the desires, without too strong a stricture to fit into existing structures and systems. And that's where sort of some of the tensions, not just in our board meetings, but over the years as well, like, being accountable and stuff like that is hard. It can be hard, especially for different people at different levels or different, life stages and so on. And I guess it's not really going towards an answer to the question, but having those kinds of people around us and being the kind of place where we can be those kinds of people for other people, meaning flexible, supportive, is I think that was probably the most helpful and driving thing, I guess. Maybe not the right word. As Hugh mentioned, like the funders were amazing, and still are. The fact that we get to continue and expand and in some ways also change quite a bit our mission is just amazing. And yeah, I think I'll stop there before I mumble too much more.
It's really fast again, I promise. I adore Boris because sometimes we get into the real abstract stuff in the chat during board meetings. And one of the things that we were trying to reconcile in a side chat conversation about practicality, sort of the way we mentioned earlier, we don't want to be held back by practicality, but we also want to attend to the practicality. So what wound up being said is yes to the yes to the practical reality of working with humans, but not the practical reality, the sort of false practical reality of the rigidity of capitalism. And so trying to contend with those two kinds of practicality, which get lumped in together but are not the same thing, is one piece of sort of the Rebus puzzle, I think.
Just to jump in quickly again.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I guess one of the other tensions that I was causing was a lot of this language that we're using comes from this system that is kind of creating this unbearable environment. We talk like equity is a finance term, right? Accountability, stuff like that. What is value, et cetera. Like this is very slippery language. I can't think of other words right now. I'd have to put on my poet's hat, I guess. And I guess there are people out there doing this. But when you're trying to have a conversation about mission and vision and strategy and values, and in the back of your head, all you hear is, the history books of military methodologies that use the same language, and the corporate, I've done strategy work for corporations. It's the same language. So there's this dissonance, and I guess I like to sometimes throw a monkey in the gears and be like, what are we talking about here? So just put that again.
I want to reflect a bit on not Rebus, but sort of how I got interested in the universe of open, which is through LibriVox. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the project, but made a very little statement that we wanted all books that are in the public domain available in audio to the world, recorded by volunteers, and who wants to help. And what was really fascinating was with that just simple, very clear idea of what it was that LibriVox was doing. Thousands of people participated in this. And so our job as an organization, which was totally, completely decentralized and, the early crazy web days of the early 2000s. But the thing that we worked hard at doing and was allowing people to figure out how to build the structures that would support the people who were making the recordings. And that emerged because people got excited about the concept and then found ways to help contribute to make that happen. And what was really interesting to me about LibriVox and really instructive was that we had people recording hours and hours of audiobooks and giving them away for free. And these often were people who might be at home for various different reasons, might not be in the workforce in day-to-day jobs, might be. And what was really fascinating was the amount of value that both they felt they got out of that experience and what they felt they contributed. And so I think that kind of concept here, and it's really gratifying to see again how Rebus has evolved to really be about supporting a group of people who are supporting other people within the ecosystem of teaching. And so again, I think this idea, like you set a vision that people care about and do your best, and it's hard sometimes, but to build the structures to help the people get towards that thing. And I can't remember what the question was, but yeah, structures. Yeah. So, something that people can get excited and feel meaningful for them to do. And then what are you doing as an organization to help them get there? And I think that, when I think about where Rebus has evolved, that and it was sort of conceived very differently to what it is now, but it's very gratifying to see
Hugh.
the way it's been implemented.
Thank you. We have 2 minutes left, so I'm going to maybe ask you 2 final questions. Have there been unexpected surprises or failures along the way at Rebus? And are there any nuggets of wisdom or essential lessons that you'd like to share? Give me your rapid fire answers.
There's a really good, I'm just gonna hold it like this, like I don't know. But there's a really great comment in the chat. Somebody said, hold urgency and grow slow. And I feel like I just want to make like a, button for that or post-it note or something. I really love that. So the holding the urgency and grow slow. I also think a nugget of wisdom is if you are on a board, make sure to invest in the leader of the organization as well as the others in the organization. And what I mean by that is Apurva has had the chance to do some executive coaching, has also had the opportunity to be involved in a coaching circle on liberatory practices, which I also had the opportunity to be a part of. And so I think it's important to remember the more you invest in the people, the more the organization invests back into themselves, but also to the community.
Mia said in the chat, it's sort of writing our relationship with our communities, our work, and there was something more to that, and ourselves as people as well. That's what this is all about. Caitlin?
Just to jump off of what Amanda said, yesterday, Jasmine Roberts-Cruz said something in her session that's been living in my head rent-free, that this work is too urgent to rush, it's just really struck something in me. And so I think that that's an important aspect about how we go about the work with urgency, but with patience and thought and slowness too.
And
We
joy
are
and creativity.
at time, but Boris and Hugh, I'm going to let you finish your final thoughts.
Go ahead, Boris.
And if anyone has questions for us virtually or in person, come find any of the 4 of us virtually, Rebus.Foundation. You can find all of our information there. Hugh, Boris.
Go ahead, Boris.
Oh, I was just tacking 2 more words on what Caitlin was saying. It's and with joy and creativity.
Yeah.
It's important.
I would like to, I don't know if it'd be the final, but anyway, one of the things that I think is really important at this moment in the universe where we live is the importance of being able to have these really hard, challenging conversations. And I think particularly let's say I come from a very different perspective to Apurva and Caitlin, and we were at loggerheads in I think it's fair to say
Hugh, the mic.
we were at loggerheads in a lot of this strategic discussion. And I think it's really important that what was gratifying was that we were able to step back and go back to the question of what does Caitlin want to achieve? What does Apurva want to achieve? What do I want to achieve? Where's the commonality there? And then how do we work together to get there and figure that out? Because that to me is the most important thing. Also Amanda and Boris as well. But Amanda was like, Hugh, you need to, anyway. Amanda was the mediator on it, and Boris was just saying dismantle the capitalist system mostly.
Boris comes up with all the ideology, and I'm like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
What do we do?
But all this to say is, yeah, the joy and the fun is born out of the conflict. And I think we have made our ways through that, and hopefully can also pass the good stuff on to all of you. So I just want to say thank you to everybody on the board for your service. Thank you for being willing to be on this call and share your thoughts. And thank you everybody online for attending and in person. And Christina, thank you both. If people have questions, come find us. But